You need winners? Let the Football Insiders show you how to make money. General Manager Al DeMarco, a former sports reporter and contributor on Fox Sports, MSNBC, and Comcast Sports TV, brings over 25 years of handicapping experience to the table. CEO Steve Budin, the author of Bets, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, is the man responsible for creating the sports betting industry. Together, they are the Football Insiders, your number one source for football winners.
A strange week in the NFL in terms of who covered the spread. You had 5 favorites getting the job done. You had 4 underdogs barking in Vegas. Then you had a couple of pushes along the way, proving once more the value of buying the half point, especially if you had money down in those games between Carolina and the Rams and Miami and the New York Jets. Perhaps the strangest game of all when it came to investing, though, had to be the Sunday night game between Buffalo and Seattle. Hi, everyone. Al DeMarco here, joining me as he has each and every weekend the past 10 years from Miami, Steve Budin. This is the Football Insiders, the countdown, the kickoff show, the only nationally televised show to break down all your top NFL games from a point spread perspective. And Steve, I go back to that Sunday night game because 99% of the time I've always maintained here as a gambler, as a handicapper, that if you're betting the favorite, you bet them early. If you're betting the underdog, you bet them late. But there's an exception to every single rule, and that Sunday night game definitely was one, because going into the Sunday morning, that line was a solid 7. But early Sunday morning, you immediately had movement because money was pouring in on Buffalo. That line dropped to 6.5. And then by 1:30 on Sunday afternoon, that line dropped to 6. That tells me, if you're a gambler out there, you've got to be cognizant of what's going on. And if you're on Seattle and you see that early move from 7 to 6.5 early in the morning, you've got to be patient. You've got to wait, because you've got to realize that money's pouring in on Buffalo, that line is probably going to move even more. The other side of the coin would be, if you happen to be on the Bills, well, geez, you've got to get down immediately, because otherwise you're going to lose that half point and you're going to end up having to buy it back anyway.
Yeah, and I think what we saw play out here, Al, was the psychological effects of the number 7 and how that makes gamblers feel. We also see how the marketplace works for a bookmaker and how the bookmakers don't control the lines. The gamblers control the lines when they make their bets and how they bet and which direction they bet. And obviously, that number 7 was scary to gamblers, and they started, instead of laying that 7, they started taking the points, and that made the number go down to 6.5 and finally to 6. It's the free marketplace at work, and it doesn't happen anywhere more clearly than in a bookmaking shop.
And of course, what happened is we had a game that finished right on the number of 6. 99% of the people out there ended up pushing. Now, the other games I referred to, of course, Miami happened to be my best bet. It was a game that you happened to be there in person watching the Dolphins. I took the Dolphins at -4. I went ahead and bought them down a half point to 3.5, walked off with a miraculous win, proving once more why it's so important to buy down that half point, or buy up if you happen to be on the Jets in that particular case, when that line crosses 3, 4, 7, sometimes even 10. Same thing in Carolina and the Rams. If you bought up or down, you either walked away with a win or you got saddled with a loss. But why not buy that half point? And I realize, Steve, listen, you're a former bookmaker. You know it as well as I do. I'm preaching to the choir. Some people will never, ever understand the value of it. But after 20 years of doing that as a gambler, as a handicapper, it's the one strategy that has made me more money and saved me more money by turning potential losses into pushes, turning pushes into wins, than any other strategic move that I could possibly make.
Right, traditional thinking would always say, never buy the half a point. And even though I'm a bookmaker and the inventor of the offshore bookmaking industry, let me tell you, Al, when you have, and you can use the power of money against your bookmaker, when you have accumulated a bankroll over time and you're sitting with their money in your account, that's the time that you take your foot and you put it on their throat. So yes, I would be an advocate for buying the half a point. In those scenarios, I do believe it's bankroll related.
And of course, if you're playing 7 games on a Sunday, it makes no sense because the vig is going to kill you. But if you're like me and you, where you're only isolating one game, It makes perfect sense. And the analogy I would always come up with, listen, it is no different than extra 20 cents I spent on Sunday to ensure that I walked away with a win on the Dolphins, where the big actually came into play and the half point came into play in this particular case, is no different than me betting, for example, the Detroit Tigers and Justin Verlander on any Tuesday in the middle of June at minus $1.35 or $1.30, as opposed to betting the Dolphins at minus $1.30 instead of $1.10. I'd make the bet in baseball. I made the bet in football. I walked off with a win. With that being said, let's get started here with our first game on the board. The New Orleans Saints, winners of 4 of their last 5, and they've covered 5 in a row, coming back home after a road blowout of San Francisco, taking on the Denver Broncos squad that no-showed for a second straight road game, losing at Oakland on Sunday night. Steve, I know which way I'm going in this game. We never talk about these games prior to the show, but I'm kind of curious to get your take on how you feel the Saints will do back at the Superdome.
Look, Al, this is a Denver Bronco team that, well, let's be honest, they've made their bones this season on defense. However, let's face it, the Orange Crush defense got crushed last week, 30-20 on the road by the Raiders. Now they face a balanced offense in New Orleans. Kind of reminds me of the old Black Crowes song, because they certainly are too hard to handle. The Denver defense, well, Al, they're going to have their hands full. Trust me on this one. But the bottom line with the Broncos, and the problem is actually their offense, not their defense. I mean, running back C.J. Anderson out of the lineup. Denver becomes as predictable as a 3-legged doggy taking a whiz. Easy to get a leg up by their opponents, because, come on, all they have to do, Al, is just sit on the pass, knowing that the Broncos can't run the ball. Talk about taking candy from a baby. Denver defense, huge hole in the secondary. Cornerback Aqib Talib is out, and that should make things even easier for Drew Brees. Nothing fancy here for me. Drew Brees at home in the Dome gets the money.
You know, one of the things that I find most interesting here is I'm going to make this comparison between the 49ers and the Broncos defensively. And don't laugh here, guys, as you're watching this video. Listen, this makes perfect sense. You know, the Saints last week ran for 248 of their 571 total yards on the San Francisco defense, which should be of no surprise, because the 49ers are ranked dead last, number 32 in the league when it comes to stopping the run. But listen, the Raiders ran for 218 yards on Sunday night against the Broncos, because where are the Broncos deficient? At stopping the run. Because where the 49ers are number 32, dead last in the league at stopping the run, well, the Denver Broncos, great against the pass, but against the run, they are number 28. They're giving up 136 yards a game, 4.6 yards per carry. I go back to a couple weeks ago when Seattle came to the Superdome, and Sean Payton decided in that game Seattle's defense was tired after playing that overtime game against Arizona the week prior. He decided to have a run-pass split ratio, 25 and 25. And suddenly the Saints, a team that's not known for running the ball effectively, they ran for 123 yards. Tim Hightower had 102 of them, and they managed to pull the 25-20 upset as a 2.5-point home dog. Well, this past week at San Francisco, they had a great game running the ball, 248 yards. Mark Ingram, 158. Tim Hightower, 87. I expect them to definitely hit that soft interior side of that Denver defense, run the ball effectively, and that's going to make Drew Brees all the more effective. And I know the Broncos are going to come after him, but listen, for as many times as Brees has passed this season and dropped back, he's only been sacked 12 times. So I'm more than willing to take the points here and lay them with New Orleans, -1.5, -2 points. Again, they've covered 5 in a row. I can see the over perhaps here as well. But this Broncos team, 299 total yards in offense at the Raiders in the loss, only 300 total yards of offense in the loss at San Diego. They're just not that good offensively. I agree with you, and I'm going to go with New Orleans in this one. Next up, Philadelphia. Pick'em game at Atlanta. I think this line is wrong. I think Atlanta should be favored here. Falcons 5-0 against the spread on the road. You know, Philadelphia, everybody was crowing about the Eagles when they got off to the 3-0 start, kind of overlooking the fact they have a rookie coach and a rookie quarterback. Well, the coach and the quarterback have both struggled here of late, as the Eagles have dropped 4 of their last 5, pretty much gave away a game to the Giants over the weekend. Steve, are you going along the lines I am, thinking the Falcons are clearly the better team here in this particular spot?
Well, first couple of weeks, Carson Wentz, Allie could do no wrong. He was walking around that town like he owned it. Then he finally hit the proverbial rookie wall. And, hey, Carson, you're not Lionel Richie, and Sundays, not so easy anymore, is it? NFL defenses, they're now familiar with Wentz. I mean, they've been shutting him down now for the past 4 games, treating him like a foreign exchange student from Iran, Al. They put him on the no-fly list. And to be honest, if I were the Eagles, I'm not sure who I'd be more worried about. The Falcons or the fans? I mean, the Philly fans, they make soccer hooligans look like Justin Bieber in a slap fight. And Al, they've had about enough of this Eagles team. 1-4 straight up in the last 5. If they lose this one, they're going to slide underneath 500. Not going to be a lot of brotherly love coming out of Philly from the fans this week. In fact, I don't know if you heard this down there, but I hear they're going to stop selling alcohol after the second quarter in this one. I mean, why take any chances at all? Meanwhile, Atlanta, no fade this year. Back-to-back victories over the Pack and the Bucks. That proves that they don't plan on slowing down at all. Matty Ice, 7 touchdown passes, no picks. That's the last 2 games. I don't think Philly can keep up with this Atlanta team, Al. So give me the Redbirds on the road to put the Eagles on the endangered species list. Falcons get the win, and yes, the money.
Hey, listen, the Eagles last year had all problems with their secondary, gave up like 35 or 36 touchdown passes a year ago. This year got off to the great start. The last 4 or 5 games, they've given up 12 touchdown passes, and you're right. Matt Ryan's had a great year. I don't see where the Eagles secondary is going to be able to stop Julio Jones, who's coming off 8 more catches last week against Tampa Bay. Falcons had the extra time to prepare as well. Jones needs only 30 more yards to crack the 1,000-yard barrier. Plus, I look at this Eagles offense. You know, Carson Wentz, first 2 series, 2 interceptions, immediately led to 14 points to the Giants, so they gift-wrapped that victory. And then Doug Peterson, a riverboat gambler, the first few games of the season, he was 5 for 5 going for it on 4th down, but then 2 costly 4th down conversions that failed, where he had the potential on the road to put points on the board. Instead of going for the sure thing field goal, he went for it on 4th down. They went 0 for 2, came back to bit him in the ass, went for, instead of going for a 4th down try a 3rd time, they go for the field goal. It gets blocked. And then not only that, but then the Eagles 3 for 15 on 3rd down conversions. You know, the Eagles have no wide receivers. Their tight ends haven't produced. They got Darren Sproles, who, listen, very productive guy, but he right now is their number 1 running back. You're just not going to get a guy that size at his age to be productive all the time as your number 1 back. This is a team that has a lot of flaws right now, and I just love Atlanta here again. I think the Falcons should be the 3-point favorite. I think it'll be a high-scoring game because, let's face it, the Falcons don't play any defense. But 5-0 against the spread on the road is 5-0, and I think 6-0 after this week. Next one, Washington, -3 at home against the Minnesota Vikings. Redskins coming off a bye. Before that, they played to the tie in London against Cincinnati. The week before that, they lost in the final seconds in Detroit. And before that, they had won 4 straight. So my way of thinking, Steve, is this is a must-win for Jay Gruden's team.
I mean, what happened to the Vikings offense, Al? They had a fast start to the season, and now they wind up on the side of a milk carton. I mean, they're missing in action. And while they may get AP back soon, Al, it's not soon enough to help them in Washington, where the Redskins are about to destroy them like they were a bunch of Hillary Clinton's classified emails. 2.6 yards a carry for Minnesota. I mean, they moved the ball like a manatee on ketamine. Al, even Norv Turner is drinking again. He's had enough. He quit last week. Redskins offense, like the tote board at Laurel Park, putting up all kinds of numbers, 400-plus yards, 3 straight games. Kirk Cousins had a shaky start, 759 yards, passing, 72% completion ratio. That's the last 2 games. But it's also the Redskin defense, Al. They've been stepping it up. 14 sacks in the last 4 games. That's going to spell trouble for this Minnesota offense. Trust me. Washington, 5-1 against the spread in the last 6. Al, if I had to name this Viking ship, I'd call it the Titanic because it's about to sink. Give me the Redskins here to get the money.
I'm with you as well. Listen, I think the Redskins are definitely going to come after Sam Bradford because we've seen their inability to run means all the pressure is on Bradford, and that offensive line, especially at both tackle positions, where they're going with journeymen at tackles and inexperienced guys, has not been able to give Bradford adequate protection. And when you don't have to even worry about the run, well, it's everybody teeing off on Bradford. I'm with you. And again, as I said, the Redskins, I think, are in a must-win situation. Guys, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back for the second half of this week's Countdown to Kickoff show. 4.5 years ago, I created the Charity Play of the Week program. And in that time, you and I have created a community of caregivers and have combined to contribute well over $350,000 to people in times of need. For those of you that have joined me, my thanks. For those of you that are not aware of the Charity Play of the Week program, let me just remind you, once a week, I give one of the top plays from one of the handicappers away here at the site for free, no strings attached. If it wins, then on a quid pro quo basis, I ask you to make a donation to a charity recipient that I choose on a weekly basis. I don't care if it's $1, $5, or $50. You don't have to put in the $250 that I do each time it wins, but I ask you to participate. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. Why? Because it creates positive karma. And you and I both know in this thing we do called gambling, we can never have enough positive karma. Again, I give you the play for free, and if it wins, I then ask you to make a contribution. It's done on the honor system, guys. And again, over the past 4.5 years, this community of caregivers has contributed well over $350,000. So, it's usually on Tuesday or Wednesday on the site. Check it out. You'll see one of the feature plays from one of the handicappers given away for free, no strings attached. It's a Charity Play of the Week program, and I hope you become a member of one of the most important things that you'll ever come across in gambling. Nobody's ever done it. I created it, and it's definitely something that will produce some positive karma in your life and benefit others in a time of need. The second half ready to kick off here for this week's edition of the Football Insiders Countdown to Kickoff show. And we start with the Green Bay Packers as they embark on a 3-game road trip coming off a home loss as a 7.5-point favorite to the Indianapolis Colts, visiting the Tennessee Titans, who return home to Nashville following a loss to the San Diego Chargers. Last time home, the Titans had a 3-game homestand. They beat Cleveland, they beat Jacksonville. In between, they should have beaten the Colts, but a late fourth quarter collapse cost them a 3-0 sweep. This, Steve, is a game that I personally would not bet on, but we'll break it down anyway.
Look, I don't know about you, Al, but to me, Green Bay seems like Miley Cyrus right after she left the Disney Channel. I mean, definitely going through something, and it's more than just an overbearing father who won't let him wear short shorts, smoke pot, and hang out with rappers. Trust me, key injuries on offense and defense. Lovers quarrel between Aaron Rodgers and head coach Mike McCarthy. But all that being said, this is the reason why they're favorite. It's because this is a Packers team who's about to slide below 500 and makes this a must-win. And at the end of the day, every sucker in the world knows it. McDonald's is about Big Macs, and the NFL is about quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers in a must-win versus Marcus Mariota. Check, please. I'll take A-Rod every single day of the week. So give me Green Bay, the cheap chalk on the road at Tennessee for the money.
I will point out that Tennessee 5-15-1 against the spread, their last 21 games at home, including 1-4 against the spread this year. I could go either way on this particular game. I don't even have a feeling that strong about the total. I'd be curious, even thinking a little bit about backing the Titans in this game. But, you know, the problem with Marcus Mariota, you never know what you get. He looks so good 1 minute, and then you see what he did last week at San Diego. An interception and a fumble directly resulting in 14 easy points for San Diego. He is a turnover machine waiting to happen. And then the Titans play well at times for stretches defensively, and then totally collapse the next minute. This is just a really inconsistent team, and the Packers, I wrote them off weeks ago because, you know, They have no ground game. It's the Aaron Rodgers show, and yet that offense, despite all the talent, just hasn't clicked all season long. Next game, though, is one that I definitely do like. San Diego minus the 3.5 at home against Miami. Listen, I am very, very fortunate to walk away with the win against Miami last week, as we both know. Dolphins wrapping up a 3-0 homestand, coming away with the cover, in my case, because I bought the half-point down against the Jets. Before that, consecutive upsets against the Buffalo Bills when LaShawn McCoy was not healthy, against the Pittsburgh Steelers when Ben Roethlisberger suffered the knee injury early. Now they're back on the road. San Diego playing well. They've won 3 of their last 4 games, and they're coming off the big beatdown of the Titans at home. Steve, I think this is an extremely cheap price to take the Chargers, especially since they're not a one-dimensional team anymore offensively. This is not just the Phillip Rivers show. Melvin Gordon has finally given them something they haven't had in a few years. That is a spectacular running game coming off a 192-yard effort against Tennessee on Sunday.
Well, Al, either one of two things are happening. Either people aren't watching these games or they don't know what they're watching. I mean, everybody's just smitten with the Dolphins. It reminds me of when that beautiful young blonde walks up to the middle-aged, overweight guy at the bar and invites him home. Al, it never ends up good for the guy. He always ends up waking up in a bathtub full of ice, missing his Rolex and his kidney. Now, I know, Miami's won 3 in a row. But you can't always believe what you see. Just ask the chubby guy in the bathtub full of ice. They beat the Pittsburgh Steelers minus Big Ben. They beat Buffalo Schmuffalo. And they beat the Jets, who defense ranks last in the league against the pass, yet they shut Tannehill down like a redheaded stepchild on Thanksgiving trying to get an extra turkey leg. In fact, it was a ridiculous offsides penalty that forced the Jets to repunt the ball at the end of the game. I was there. I saw it. It was like being at the burning bush. It was a complete miracle. The second punt went off to the Dolphins, and they returned it 70-plus yards. Al, you know the story. Game-winning touchdown, a complete miracle. Never should have happened, but it exposed something to me. It exposed Miami to be a blatant fraud who may be on a 3-game winning streak, Al, but they're ripe and ready to be bitch slapped back to reality. Phillip Rivers, he has a potent offense, and he's going to do just that. Give me the Chargers at home, minus the wood, to get the money.
And listen, I always look at games, and after I start handicapping some of the generic stuff, the first stat that I look at is how the teams do running the ball and defending against the run. To me, that is the essence of handicapping football. And I look at these two teams. You know, Miami's run defense, number 30 in the league. There are only, again, 32 teams, guys. 136 yards a game they allow, but 4.6 yards per carry. And I always emphasize the yards per carry because, listen, guys, when you're allowing opposing running backs to get almost 4.5, 5 yards a carry, well, that makes 1st and 10, 2nd and 5, and that sets up play action and so many wonderful things. And when the Chargers are now running the ball with Melvin Gordon off to such a great start, that puts Phillip Rivers in such great position. Now, on the other side, we have seen the Dolphins rejuvenate their offense here in the recent weeks thanks to Jay Ajayi. He had the back-to-back 200-yard games against the Bills and the Steelers, but the Jets had the number 1 run defense coming into that game this past Sunday. And although the final box score shows that Ajayi had over 100 yards, most of those were hard-fought yards. He didn't get over that 100-yard barrier till very late in the game. Well, the Chargers have the number 5 run defense in the league. Hold opposing backs to about 3.7 yards a carry, give up only about 86 yards a game. So to me, all the dynamics are there. Chargers stop the run. Dolphins are going to want to run. That's bad news for them. Meanwhile, you know the Chargers are going to run and have success against this poor Miami defense. Again, 3.5 points. You said it best. You don't know what these guys are watching. Chargers are undervalued. Definitely the cheap chalk here. I think this, Steve, this next game could be the trap game for the public. Pittsburgh minus the 2.5 here at home against Dallas. We have been telling everybody from week number 1, ride the Cowboys, and why not? They have been money in the bank. But I think the general public are going to be thinking this way. The Steelers have lost 3 in a row. Ben Roethlisberger's back. He's back at home. They're undefeated with Big Ben at quarterback at home this year. The Steelers have to win. Well, who says they're gonna win?
I mean, I'm looking at this line now, and I feel like I'm staring at the bearded lady in church over here. I mean, I know Big Ben is back, but short of the New England Patriots, the Cowboys are the hottest team in football right now. So how did Roethlisberger do in his debut last week? 1 interception, 2 fumbles, and even though he didn't turn the fumbles over, man, he looked about as steady as Lil Wayne on Scissor. I mean, Al, I've been on Dallas every single week since we launched this show. So have you. We haven't lost one yet. Plenty of Cowboy bankroll to burn. Besides, Cowboys 3-0-1 as the dog this season. I like the trifecta of Dak, Zeke, and Dez for Dallas. And like Joe Pesci said and my cousin Vinny, Al, give me the Utes. The Utes all day long. I'll take the boys here one more time to get the money.
Well, and you look at the Steelers, okay, Roethlisberger, let's say he was rusty. I understand that. But the Ravens, to me, are a fraud. I never thought they were as good as they showed when they got off to a 3-0 start. I didn't think they were as bad as they showed when they lost 4 in a row. So they were a 4-4 team, and that's what they are. They're just an average team. But the Steelers last week couldn't do anything offensively, only 277 total yards, 4 for 16 on third downs. You're taking on the Cowboys team that can run the ball, they can throw the ball, they play behind a massive offensive line. You've got a quarterback that's extremely mobile there in Prescott, and you have a Pittsburgh defense that's been unable to generate much pressure. I just think all the ingredients are there for a Dallas win. Now, this is a game that I will probably stay away from, but I think personally, if you're going to play it, you got to play Dallas because, again, I think this is a trap game situation. I've seen Roethlisberger, of course, deliver in these situations many, many times, but I don't think so this time. And I would not be surprised, Steve, to see this game be bet up by the public because of that wave of thought that this is a must-win for the Steelers.
And they're buying into the hype, Al. You're absolutely right. They're looking at this line, and they're not using their brain. They're letting the line dictate what they think, and they're buying into the hype.
Exactly. So if you're going to bet the Cowboys in this one, absolutely wait till the last minute because you're going to get that extra value because the public's going to push it in Pittsburgh's favor. A final game is going to be one of the more interesting ones and maybe one of the best ones on the card. New England minus the 7.5 at home against Seattle. Patriots, since Tom Brady has returned, 4-0 straight up and against the spread, and all they've done is score 136 points. And Brady, in those 4 games, 98 for 134. Over 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's played okay, I guess.
Wow, this is a great game. Finally, we got a great game. And I told you in week 2, before Brady ever came back, I like the Patriots to go all the way. They were 8-1 at the time. They're only 2-1 now in the Vegas books. Looks like everyone's finally caught on to our advice, Al, about this Patriot team. They are flat out on a mission. Tom Brady, 4 straight wins and covers. Since the Brady Bunch rerun started to air, all double-digit blowouts. We know Russell Wilson is banged up, but he's always competitive. And just like Sally Simmons in the 3rd grade science closet, Wilson really showed me something last Monday night. 31 points in the win against a proud, if not good, Buffalo Bills defense. Al, I think if he could score 24 versus New England, there's no way this game goes under the total. I'm actually looking for a big game from Wilson. I'm looking for a much bigger game from Brady. Give me the Patriots here. I like the over a little bit, but we'll stick with the Patriots for the money.
I like the Patriots a lot in this game. I do not like Seattle at all. I can see certainly the over here. Listen, I was not impressed with the Seahawks on Sunday night against Buffalo. When I look at what the Bills did in that game, they had the ball for 82 plays. Their time of possession, 40 minutes. 425 total yards in that contest. Seattle couldn't get them off the field. And Seattle offensively, yeah, Russell Wilson had a nice game passing-wise. But Russell Wilson still is not scrambling. Russell Wilson is still not using his feet to extend drives. And Seattle absolutely just refuses to even try to run the ball. In that game, they only ran the ball 12 times. They had 33 yards. They can't run the ball. That type of one-dimensional attack is not going to work. And now you're asking them to travel, short week for them because they played the Sunday night game, travel across the country to take a well-rested team coming off a bye in the Patriots, who we remember the last time these two met in that little game called the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. I just think that this is a great spot to take the Patriots. This is a great game, by the way. I know it's the late game. It's a great game to look in a two-team teaser as well, because there's no way New England is losing this one at home. So if you take New England in a standard two-team teaser minus the 6 points, taking them down to 1.5, I would not play it in association with the over or the under in this particular game, but perhaps hooking it up with another game earlier on the card. But I do like New England. I'm with you there in terms of taking them on the side in this particular game. And the fact that the Seahawks are 9-3-1 as a regular season dog against the spread since Russell Wilson has arrived is inconsequential. This defense is not as good with Cam Chancellor missing the last 4 games, with Michael Bennett, their defensive end, out with knee surgery. And we saw how they failed to produce a couple of weeks ago when they were on the field for 46 minutes in the tie game in overtime with Arizona, following up with a dismal effort the following week at New Orleans when they lost 25-20. If you can lose by 5 points at New Orleans, you can certainly lose and fail to cover the spread at New England. Well, that'll do it for this week's show, guys. We hope you make some money this week thanks to our advice, and make sure you check out my daily videos each and every day. Until next week, for Steve Budin, I'm Al DeMarco, and this is the Football Insiders Countdown to Kickoff.